When King Charles III's personal doctor broke his silence, it wasn't just a medical update. It was a rare breach in royal tradition. Behind palace walls, whispers turned into global concern. This wasn't pageantry. It was prognosis. And for a monarchy built on stability, illness could mean much more than recovery. The public announcement: King Charles III's cancer diagnosis. On the 5th of February 2024, the world stopped, if only for a moment. Buckingham Palace, often a fortress of tradition and secrecy, released a rare and solemn statement. King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer. The announcement came just days after a routine procedure for an enlarged prostate, during which doctors discovered what they called a separate issue of concern. That issue, as it turned out, was far more serious. This level of transparency was uncommon for the royal family. In past generations, illness was rarely admitted, especially not cancer. When King George VI suffered serious health issues, the public was kept largely in the dark. But Charles, now 75, chose a different path, one that acknowledged not just the diagnosis, but the reality of what lay ahead. The palace made it clear that Charles was remaining wholly positive, and that public engagements would be postponed while he underwent treatment. Still, the timing of the announcement and its tone signaled something deeper. This wasn't just about a calendar change, it was about a shift in public trust. People wanted to know, how serious is it? What does this mean for the monarchy? Will Charles continue? Though the statement stopped short of naming the type of cancer, it marked a turning point. In the modern age, the monarchy could no longer rely on silence. Public life now demands more clarity, even from those born into power. Ongoing treatment and health struggles, the hidden reality. After the initial announcement, the updates were cautious. King Charles began regular cancer treatment, and in March 2025 he was briefly hospitalized following side effects. Though the palace called it a minor bump in the road, it forced further postponements of scheduled duties. It was a quiet moment of vulnerability in a life lived in ceremony. He soon returned to Clarence House, reportedly continuing to work from his private study. A few days later, he resumed public appearances, smiling, waving, speaking with guests. On the surface, it seemed like a quick rebound. But the absence of specifics, no cancer type, no treatment details, no prognosis, left royal watchers uneasy. What we do know is this: cancer treatment at his age is no small task. Even when recovery appears swift, there are long-term effects, both physical and emotional. Royal appearances may project continuity, but behind closed doors, the truth is likely far more complex. This balancing act between visible duty and private recovery has become a defining feature of Charles's reign. Every appearance becomes a symbol, every absence a signal, and every photo a point of speculation. The king's health is not just a personal matter, it's a matter of national continuity, and that's what makes the silence around it so loud. Up next, we'll explore how one doctor's public comment reshaped the narrative and what it revealed about the palace's deeper strategy. The Doctor Speaks Out moment, a rare insider disclosure. In an institution as guarded as the British monarchy, unexpected sources often shape the narrative. That's what happened when Professor Karol Sikora, a renowned oncologist, spoke publicly about King Charles III's cancer treatment. His comments didn't come from the palace itself, but they carried enough credibility to shift how the public interpreted the silence. Professor Sikora explained that the king's recent hospitalization in March 2025 was likely a common side effect of cancer therapy, not an emergency, not a collapse. "It happens to many patients," he said, framing the event as typical rather than tragic. These few words did something the palace's carefully worded statements could not. They humanized the king and normalized his suffering. But more importantly, Sikora's remarks revealed how much the monarchy has evolved. 20 years ago, we'd never be told anybody had cancer in the royal family, he noted. That observation is profound. From Queen Elizabeth's tightly guarded health record to earlier generations that disclosed almost nothing at all, royal illness was once cloaked in myth. Now, even limited transparency marks a cultural shift. His advice also gave a rare glimpse into what recovery might look like. Routine, family interaction, and continuity of duties can be emotionally and physiologically beneficial. It wasn't a prescription for treatment, but it hinted at why the king continues to appear in public despite obvious strain. Not to maintain illusion, but perhaps to heal more completely. Still, the doctor stopped short of offering full medical detail. No mention of cancer type, no indication of prognosis. It was enough to calm panic, but not enough to eliminate uncertainty. The public was left reassured, but not fully informed. And that delicate balance would carry heavy consequences. The consequences, what the royal family is facing behind closed doors. Behind the gilded doors of Buckingham Palace, King Charles's illness has triggered a reckoning. The diagnosis doesn't just affect him, it reshapes the entire royal structure. The first and most visible change is the king's schedule. State visits, public appearances, ceremonial duties, all now revolve around treatment cycles, rest days, and medical supervision. This shift forces others to step in. Prince William is already taking on more high-level responsibilities. Senior royals are expected to become more visible. This isn't just symbolic, it's operational restructuring. And it signals one thing clearly. The monarchy is adjusting, not just waiting. Internally, the strain is likely profound. The royal family, already carrying the weight of recent scandals, family rifts, and media hostility, must now navigate a health crisis with global attention. There's no room for emotional unraveling, but behind the silence, the pressure must be immense. What the public sees is controlled. Statements crafted for impact, images timed for reassurance. But the palace cannot control the growing gap between what's said and what's suspected. That vacuum invites speculation, and speculation demands responses. The monarchy faces a pivotal question. How much of the sovereign's health is a private matter? And how much is public business? The answer, for now, remains hidden. But as the king continues treatment, the decisions made in these quiet weeks will define not just his recovery, but the future of the crown itself. The public reaction, concern, speculation, and sympathy. The public's response to King Charles III's diagnosis has been a mix of concern, speculation, and quiet solidarity. Early photographs following the palace's announcement showed a visibly thinner, more fragile monarch. For many, it was a stark reminder that even kings are not immune to illness. As images circulated across British tabloids, international news, and social media, discussions erupted. Is he fit to continue? Is this more serious than they're letting on? These weren't idle curiosities. They were urgent, emotional questions, driven by both genuine empathy and a sense of national identity tied to the monarchy's stability. Still, when Charles returned to public engagements, albeit in a reduced capacity, it sparked a wave of admiration. People saw it not as performance, but as resilience. He gave speeches, hosted dignitaries, and smiled for cameras, all while quietly battling a disease that has no respect for titles or crowns. For some, this was the embodiment of duty under pressure. Advocates for cancer awareness welcomed the king's openness. His earlier decision to publicly disclose his prostate procedure, and now his cancer diagnosis, set an example. It reminded people that visibility can reduce stigma, encourage early detection, and change lives. In this way, the king's personal pain became part of a larger public good. But even as support poured in, a darker thread ran parallel. Critics began to question the lack of detail. What kind of cancer is it? How advanced? What's the prognosis? Withholding this information, they argued, only fuels rumors and misinformation. And in the age of viral news, that can be dangerous. As public figures, royals walk a tightrope. Too much detail, and they risk losing control of the story. Too little, and they lose trust. In Charles's case, the balance is fragile, and every step forward is being watched. Why the secrecy? What the palace may be trying to protect. The royal family's cautious messaging isn't just habit, it's strategy, honed over generations. Historically, royal illnesses were kept private to protect the institution's image. Weakness, whether physical or emotional, was considered a liability. But in 2024 and beyond, those old rules are being rewritten, though not completely. There's a deep desire to protect privacy and dignity. Medical records are personal, even for monarchs. The palace likely feels it must shield not only Charles, but Queen Camilla, Prince William, and other family members from invasive scrutiny. Sharing too much could shift focus from healing to hysteria. Then there's public stability. If too much detail were disclosed, say, if the cancer were more serious than implied, it could provoke panic or even calls for abdication. The monarchy thrives on perception, and perception requires careful management. By offering just enough unspecified cancer, undergoing treatment, positive outlook, the palace retains narrative control. This allows them to avoid leaks, prevent sensationalism, and maintain a sense of continuity during uncertain times. But there's a cost. The public may accept silence out of respect, briefly. Over time, ambiguity breeds suspicion. Without clearer updates, even well-intentioned observers may begin to question the full truth. In an age of transparency, secrecy, however justified, can look like a cover-up. And so, the monarchy walks a narrow path, between compassion and control, between modern expectations and ancient protocol. What they choose to reveal or withhold will shape not only this reign, but the public's trust in what royalty means today. The risks? What could go wrong for King Charles and the monarchy? Beneath the polished surface of royal appearances and carefully managed press releases lies a quiet but growing sense of uncertainty, one shaped not just by illness, but by everything it threatens to unravel. For King Charles III, the challenges are not only medical, they are constitutional, emotional, and historical. And for the British monarchy, they may be existential. The most immediate danger is health volatility. Cancer treatment, no matter how advanced, is inherently unpredictable. Side effects can escalate. Energy can wane. A single event, such as the March 2025 hospitalization, can shift the public mood from optimism to alarm. If the king's condition deteriorates further, it may not just disrupt royal duties, but trigger constitutional dilemmas. Questions of regency, delegation, or even abdication become no longer abstract, but real and urgent. Who takes the reins? How long can he continue? At what point does duty yield to health? Second is the risk to public confidence. The monarchy has long survived on a blend of spectacle and stability. When either is compromised, the institution wobbles. Repeated postponements, vague updates, or visible signs of frailty could chip away at public faith. For monarchists, hope rests in seeing Charles recover and reign with resolve. But for critics, especially younger generations questioning the monarchy's modern role, this chapter could reinforce perceptions that the system is outdated, fragile, and overly dependent on personalities rather than purpose. Then there's the looming pressure around succession. While no formal talks have surfaced, insiders and commentators are already speculating. Could there be a regency arrangement, with Prince William stepping in? Might roles shift more aggressively than expected? The longer uncertainty drags on, the more likely these questions spiral into political theater, risking not just speculation, but actual division within royal ranks. Fourth is the specter of media intrusion. In the absence of hard facts, the press, both traditional and digital, will continue to fill the vacuum. Tabloid speculation, anonymous sources, social media theories. Each one brings renewed scrutiny and stress, invading the private space Charles might desperately need to heal. It's not just about privacy. It's about dignity, humanity, and the psychological toll of constant exposure. Lastly, there's the weight of legacy. Charles ascended the throne late in life, after decades of preparing for a reign shaped by climate advocacy, faith diplomacy, and monarchical reform. But illness, if left unchecked or undermanaged publicly, could overshadow these efforts. In the long lens of history, there's a real risk that Charles will be remembered less for what he built, and more for how he fell. And that is the quiet urgency behind every palace update, every appearance, every silence. The hope that this reign won't be defined by its fragility, but by how it faced it. What the Private Doctor's Truth actually gives us clarity, but not full transparency. When Professor Carol Sikora, one of the UK's most prominent oncologists, spoke out about King Charles III's recent hospitalization, his words landed with both relief and restraint. He described the medical episode, which interrupted the King's public schedule in March 2025, as a normal side effect of ongoing cancer treatment. Not alarming, not unusual, just part of the therapeutic journey. In saying this, Professor Sikora offered something rare in the royal ecosystem, a non-palace medical voice. This wasn't a carefully worded press release or a controlled photo opportunity. It was a medical professional giving public reassurance based on decades of experience. These things happen, he explained, and in that moment, he shifted the public mood from anxiety to understanding. But while the commentary grounded the story in medical realism, it didn't deliver full transparency. There was still no mention of the cancer type, no details on staging, prognosis, or treatment regimen. The public was given calm, not clarity, enough to trust the process, not enough to know the path ahead. And therein lies the tension. In the absence of hard facts, speculation takes over. Every new image of the king, from Clarence House balconies to public engagements, is scanned for signs of frailty or vitality. Tabloid narratives swing between optimism and alarm. The royal silence, even when well-intentioned, becomes the oxygen for rumor and projection. This is what might be called partial transparency. It reflects a monarchy caught between two worlds, the old model of regal discretion and a modern age of instant visibility and public accountability. On one hand, the palace has done more than past generations, openly confirming a cancer diagnosis in February 2024. On the other hand, They've maintained strategic ambiguity, shielding the monarch from intrusive detail. What the doctor's voice gives us is context. What it doesn't give us is closure. And that's the core challenge. In this space between truth and mystery, between public duty and private suffering, lies a test not just for the king, but for the institution itself. How much is too much to reveal? How little is too little to share? These aren't just questions of communication, they're questions of identity, and they may define the tone of King Charles's reign more deeply than any ceremony or speech. Possible futures: how this crisis could reshape the monarchy. As King Charles III continues his public battle with cancer, a quiet yet profound question reverberates through Buckingham Palace and beyond. What comes next for the monarchy? For centuries, the British royal family has weathered political storms, abdications, divorces, and global scrutiny. But rarely has the institution been tested so intimately, so privately, by the physical vulnerability of its reigning monarch. The most hopeful path forward is the scenario of recovery and return. In this version of events, the king completes his treatment successfully, regains strength, and resumes a full calendar of public duties. His recovery would not only bring relief to supporters, but could redefine his reign as one of resilience and duty in adversity. For a monarch often viewed as a bridge between eras, from Elizabeth II to Prince William, this chapter could cement a personal legacy marked by perseverance and quiet strength. A more measured future is already beginning to take shape, what might be called partial delegation. Increasingly, key royal responsibilities are being redistributed. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, and other senior royals are stepping in more visibly, attending events, hosting foreign dignitaries, and representing the crown in ceremonial functions. While subtle, this is more than symbolic. It reflects a gradual decentralization of royal authority, a contingency plan forming quietly as the king balances leadership with treatment. However, if King Charles's health continues to decline, pressure for a more formal solution may grow. Enter the possibility of a regency or abdication. Though extremely rare in modern British history, constitutional provisions do exist for a regency, a legal mechanism in which the heir, likely Prince William, would take over official duties if the monarch is unable to fulfill them. Such a move would not only alter day-to-day governance, but also reshape public perceptions of leadership, especially amid ongoing global uncertainty. Another significant transformation lies in the concept of an increased transparency standard. The king's unprecedented openness, revealing both the diagnosis and aspects of his treatment, stands in stark contrast to the secrecy that defined royal health matters in the past. This may set a lasting precedent. Future monarchs may no longer be able to shield their health from public scrutiny. In the era of digital media and 24-hour news, silence breeds suspicion. And this crisis might change how royal health is communicated forever. Finally, there's the question of the erosion of royal mystique. As the public sees Charles not just as a sovereign, but as a man grappling with a deeply human struggle, the centuries-old aura of monarchy begins to shift. Some may see this as a loss of majesty, but others might view it as a gain in authenticity. The real question is this: does the modern world want its monarchs to be symbols, or do we now long for leaders who are unmistakably human? The answer may define not just Charles's reign, but the very shape of monarchy in the 21st century. How to present this story in your video: balanced, urgent, and sensitive. To tell this story responsibly, your first obligation is truth. Begin with what has been officially confirmed. The 5th of February 2024 announcement that King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer, the March 2025 hospitalization for treatment-related side effects, and the remarks made by Professor Carol Sikora, the respected oncologist who publicly clarified the king's condition. These facts should form the foundation of your narrative, grounding your viewers in reality before delving into speculation, concern, or interpretation. Next, shift the tone toward emotional depth. Don't just list events. Explore what they mean. What does it look like when a monarch, a man whose life has been scripted and scrutinized for decades, is suddenly seen through the lens of vulnerability? What does this diagnosis mean for his family, for the institution of monarchy, and for the millions of citizens who look to him for continuity in uncertain times? This is where your story becomes more than news. It becomes human. Use the doctor's commentary not merely to soothe fears, but as a pivot point. A reminder that illness doesn't discriminate, not even with a crown. Let it serve as both context and contrast, grounding the story in the everyday realities of cancer patients, while also acknowledging the unique pressure of being ill under the gaze of history, media, and legacy. It's crucial to define the boundary between what is known and what is merely theorized. Don't conflate vague updates with confirmation. When discussing possible outcomes, from regency scenarios to abdication whispers or succession planning, make it clear that these are potential paths, not guaranteed futures. Your credibility hinges on this distinction. From there, widen your lens. This story is not just about one man's health. It's a reflection of larger tensions within the modern monarchy. The pull between transparency and tradition, the demands of duty versus the right to privacy, and the balancing act between public expectation and private endurance. These are not just royal issues, they are human ones, and they echo in every institution where image collides with imperfection. Avoid dramatization, not because the stakes aren't high, but because the real drama is already powerful enough. Let the silences, the uncertainty, and the visible strain on Charles and those around him carry the weight. Audiences don't need you to tell them what to feel. They'll feel it if the story is told truthfully. End your video with reflection, not conclusion. Pose questions, not judgments. Ask your audience to consider what leadership looks like when it's no longer defined by strength alone. Remind them that beneath the polished protocol, behind every royal decree, is a man facing something deeply personal, profoundly difficult, and unmistakably human. Because in the end, that's what makes this story matter. Not just that King Charles is ill, but that his illness has stripped away the distance, even briefly, between ruler and subject, between monarchy and mortality. The doctor's words gave us insight, but not certainty. As Charles battles illness under the crown's weight, the monarchy faces an unfamiliar test: transparency and vulnerability. In this quiet crisis, the future isn't just about survival. It's about what kind of monarch and monarchy emerges when strength must share space with weakness.